years had passed since I walked out of that conference room. 2 years since I'd faced my family and delivered that presentation. 2 years of working harder than I'd ever worked before. The anger had faded somewhere along the way, replaced by something steadier, something more sustainable. I wasn't running anymore, wasn't hiding. I was building. My office at Hammond & Associates had a window now. 9th floor. City view. My name on the door in brass letters. Senior consultant. I'd earned every inch of that title. Every client. Every promotion. Every success documented and verified. Nobody could question my credentials anymore. Nobody could claim I'd lied about my abilities. The proof was everywhere. In my work. In my results. In the reputation I'd built completely separate from my family name. I was finally free of their shadow. Or so I thought. The team meeting started like any other Thursday afternoon. 8 of us gathered in the conference room. Coffee cups and laptops scattered across the table. My boss went through the weekly client list. New prospects, ongoing projects, accounts that needed attention. I was only half listening, taking notes, reviewing my own project timeline. Then she said a name that made my pen freeze mid-sentence. Thompson Industries has reached out for consulting services. My father's company. The room continued talking around me. Discussion about scope and timeline and who should handle the pitch. But I couldn't hear any of it. Blood rushed in my ears. My hands went cold. Thompson Industries. The company where I'd trained for years. Where I'd worked unpaid overtime. Where Vanessa now sat in the vice president office that should have been mine. They were reaching out to us. To Hammond & Associates. To my firm. I looked up from my notes. Tried to keep my face neutral. Professional. What's the situation? Asked. My voice sounded normal. Nobody seemed to notice the tension in my shoulders. My boss glanced at her screen. Operations management issues apparently. Contracts falling through. Client complaints increasing. They need outside help to turn things around. Operations management. Vanessa's department. The division she'd been running for 2 years. The position she'd stolen from me after destroying my wedding and my reputation. And now they needed help. Now they were admitting something was wrong. The irony was almost too perfect. Who's taking lead on this? Someone asked. My boss looked directly at me. I'm thinking our operations specialist. Someone with industry experience. Someone who understands family business dynamics. She meant me. Of course she meant me. Everyone in the room knew my history with Thompson Industries. Knew I'd worked there before. Knew there was complicated family history involved. The meeting continued but I barely participated. My mind was racing. Calculating. Processing what this meant. Thompson Industries was struggling. Vanessa was failing. And they were coming to us for help. Coming to me. After everything that had happened. After believing her lies. After choosing her over me. Now they needed what I could offer. The meeting ended. People filed out. My boss gestured for me to stay. We sat across from each other in the empty conference room. She folded her hands on the table. Studied me carefully. I need to know if you can handle this, she said quietly. Professionally. Without emotion. Without personal agenda. I met her eyes. I can handle it. This is your father's company. Your sister works there. The family that publicly humiliated you. She didn't pull punches. Never had. That's why I respected her. I know exactly what it is, I said. My voice was steady, certain. And I'm the best person for this job. Because I know that company inside and out. I know where the problems are. And I know how to fix them. She nodded slowly. Then it's yours. But I need clean work. Professional. No personal vendettas. No settling scores. Just results. That's all I want too, I said. And it was true. I didn't want revenge anymore. Didn't want to hurt anyone. I just wanted to do excellent work. To prove my worth. To show them what they'd lost when they chose lies over truth. She handed me a folder. Initial information about the project. Client concerns. Timeline. Budget. Took it. Felt the weight of it in my hands. This was it. My chance to face them again. Not as the humiliated bride who ran from her own wedding. Not as the daughter they'd rejected. But as the consultant they needed. The expert they'd hired. The professional who could save what they'd broken. I took the folder back to my office. Closed the door. Sat at my desk and opened it. Started reading through the details. And began planning my strategy. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Thinking about what this meant. About how it would feel to walk back into that building. To see my father. My mother. Vanessa. I'd avoided them completely for 2 years. No contact. No communication. They tried reaching out a few times after that first presentation. My father had called twice. Left messages saying we should talk. That family was important. That we needed to work things out. I'd never responded. What was there to say? They'd believed Vanessa's lies without question. Had thrown me away without hesitation. Had given her everything that should have been mine. An apology wouldn't fix that. Words couldn't undo that kind of betrayal. But now I'd be forced to face them again. In a professional capacity. As their consultant. Someone they'd hired because they needed help. The power dynamic had shifted. I wasn't the rejected daughter anymore. I was the expert they couldn't afford to dismiss. I started my research the next morning. Pulled Thompson Industries public records. Financial reports. Client testimonials. Press releases. Everything available online. The numbers told a story Vanessa couldn't hide. Revenue down 15% over 2 years. Client retention at an all-time low. 3 major contracts terminated early. 2 lawsuits pending for breach of service agreements. Employee turnover up 40%. The operations department was bleeding talent. Senior managers leaving. Mid-level employees jumping ship. Even administrative staff weren't staying long. Something was deeply wrong. And it had started exactly when Vanessa took over. Made notes. Highlighted patterns. Built a timeline. Documented everything carefully. This wasn't about proving she was bad at her job. The numbers proved that themselves. This was about understanding what specifically was failing. And how to fix it. Because that's what consultants did. We solved problems. Not created new ones. A week later, I attended a corporate networking event downtown. One of those industry mixers where consultants and executives mingled over expensive wine and bland appetizers. I usually avoided these things. Found them exhausting and fake. But my boss had insisted. Relationship building, she'd called it. I was standing near the bar, nursing a glass of wine I didn't really want, when a man approached. Older. 50s maybe. Expensive suit. Confident walk. "You're from Hammond and Associates," he said. Not a question. He clearly read my name tag. Confirmed it. We exchanged the usual pleasantries. Positions. How long we'd been in the industry. Then he said something that made me pay attention. "I used to work with Thompson Industries," he said. Usual. Like it was nothing. "Used to?" I asked carefully. He nodded. Took a sip of his drink. "Ended our contract 6 months ago. Couldn't deal with the inconsistent communication anymore. Broken promises. Missed deadlines. It was affecting my own business." I listened quietly. Didn't mention my connection to Thompson Industries. Didn't hint at any personal history. Just asked neutral questions. Professional curiosity. "That's unfortunate," I said. "They have a good reputation in the industry." He laughed. Short and bitter. Had a good reputation. Past tense. Something changed about 2 years ago. New management maybe. Everything went downhill fast. 2 years ago. Exactly when Vanessa became vice president of operations. What specifically went wrong? Yes. He launched into details. Contracts that weren't honored. Promises made in meetings that were never fulfilled. Communication that dried up for weeks at a time. projects that fell apart due to poor coordination. The frustrating part, he said, was that the company used to be excellent, reliable, professional, but something changed. It's like whoever took over operations didn't actually know what they were doing. He nodded, made sympathetic sounds, took mental notes of everything he said. This was valuable information, real feedback from actual clients, the kind of truth that didn't show up in public reports. 3 weeks later my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this the senior consultant handling our account? A man's voice asked. I recognized it immediately. The man from the networking event. The former Thompson Industries client. Yes, I said carefully. This is she. I heard your firm is working with Thompson Industries now, he said. I wanted to reach out. My company is looking for a new vendor, for the same services Thompson used to provide. I was wondering if your firm handles that type of work. My heart started racing. He was offering business, offering to bring his company to Hammond and Associates, to work with us instead of Thompson Industries. We do, I said, keeping my voice professional. Teddy, I'd be happy to discuss your needs. We scheduled a meeting. Hung up. Sat at my desk processing what just happened. A major client had left Thompson Industries, left my family's company, because of poor service, because of broken promises, because of Vanessa's incompetence. And now he was coming to us, to my firm. Me. I pitched the project to my boss that afternoon, explained the potential account, the scope of work, the revenue it could bring. She approved it immediately, assigned me to lead the proposal. I worked on it for a week straight, every evening, every weekend, built a comprehensive plan, addressed every concern the client had mentioned, showed exactly how we'd deliver what Thompson Industries couldn't. The presentation was perfect, professional, detailed, undeniable. We won the contract 2 weeks later. The client signed with Hammond and Associates, chose us over 3 other competing firms. My boss called me into her office. She was smiling, actually smiling, something she rarely did. You just brought in a 6-figure account, she said. Impressive work. But what she said next meant even more. The client specifically requested you as lead consultant, said you were the reason they trusted us. I felt something settle in my chest. Pride. Real genuine pride. Not because I'd beaten Vanessa, but because I'd earned this. Through skill. Through competence. Through being exactly who I'd always said I was. News traveled fast in our industry. Within days, people knew Hammond and Associates had won a major account. An account that used to belong to Thompson Industries. I started getting messages, congratulations from colleagues, questions from competitors, and then, call from my father. His number appeared on my phone screen. I stared at it for a long moment, considered not answering, but curiosity won. Picked up. Hello. My voice was neutral, professional. We heard about the contract, he said. No greeting. No small talk, straight to business. That's good for you. Waited. Didn't respond. Didn't fill the silence. We're doing well too, he continued. His voice had an edge. Defensive. Growing. Expanding. The rumors about problems are greatly exaggerated. I haven't heard any rumors, I said. Which was technically true. I hadn't heard rumors. I'd seen documented evidence. Financial reports, client testimonials, employee reviews, all publicly available information. He was quiet for a moment. Your mother asks about you. I felt something twist in my chest, but I kept my voice steady. I'm doing well. Thank you for asking. The conversation ended shortly after. Awkward. Neither of us willing to address the elephant in the room. But I noticed something. His voice sounded different, strained, worried, like he was trying to convince himself everything was fine, when we both knew it wasn't. A week later, something appeared on my LinkedIn feed. Post from Vanessa. long emotional, carefully crafted. Leadership isn't about perfection, it began. It's about learning from challenges, growing through adversity, finding resilience in difficult times. I read it twice, recognizing what it really was. Damage control, a public performance of humility and strength. The comments section filled quickly. Supportive messages from people who didn't know the full story. You're so brave. Such an inspiration. Real leaders admit their struggles. Closed the app. Didn't comment. Didn't react. 'Cause I understood something now. Vanessa's lies were catching up to her. And she was trying to get ahead of the narrative. Trying to frame her failures as learning opportunities. Her incompetence as growth. But you can't spin away poor results. You can't post your way out of broken contracts and lost clients. The truth always surfaces eventually. Sometimes it just takes longer than you'd like. Then the whispers started. Quiet at first. Easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. But I was paying attention. A senior manager from Thompson Industries applied to Hammond and Associates. Someone I'd worked with years ago. Someone competent and professional. Someone who wouldn't leave a stable position without good reason. He got the job. Started 2 weeks later. I ran into him in the break room his first day. We recognized each other immediately. Congratulations on the move, I said carefully. He poured coffee, added cream, took his time responding. Thanks. It was time for a change. He nodded. Didn't push. But he continued anyway. Things have gotten difficult there, he said quietly. Different than it used to be. Different leadership style. More focused on appearances than results. He didn't say Vanessa's name. Didn't have to. We both knew exactly what he meant. The people who actually do the work, he continued. We're just trying to keep things running. Fixing problems that shouldn't exist. Covering for mistakes that keep getting made. He looked at me then. Really looked at me. You got out at the right time. More people started leaving Thompson Industries after that. Not a flood. Just a steady trickle. Project manager here. An account coordinator there. Senior analyst. A logistics specialist. People with experience and skills. People who had options. They weren't all coming to Hammond and Associates. But enough were that people noticed. My boss mentioned it in a meeting. We're getting a lot of applications from Thompson Industries lately, she observed. Their talent is migrating. Someone joked about it. Made a comment about rats leaving a sinking ship. But I didn't laugh. Because these weren't rats. They were professionals who'd worked hard. Who deserved better than to be collateral damage in Vanessa's failure. In quiet conversations, coffee breaks, casual lunches, stories started emerging. About Vanessa's temper. Her habit of blaming others when things went wrong. Her refusal to take advice. Her shortcuts that created bigger problems down the line. About her arrogance. The way she talked down to people with more experience. The way she ignored warnings. The way she insisted she knew best even when she clearly didn't. Nobody told me these stories directly. But word travels in an industry. Especially when someone is failing spectacularly. 6 months after winning that first contract, I was assigned 3 more former Thompson Industries clients. 3 companies that had terminated their agreements. That had gone looking for better service elsewhere. That had found their way to Hammond and Associates. To my team. Me. Each time I stayed professional. Neutral. Never mentioned my family connection. Never hinted at personal history. Just did excellent work. Delivered results. Built trust. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't feel something. Not revenge exactly. Not satisfaction. Something quieter. Something like justice. Because I wasn't destroying Vanessa. I wasn't sabotaging her. I wasn't spreading rumors or telling lies. I was just doing my job. Exceptionally well. And her poor performance was driving clients to seek alternatives. To find consultants who actually delivered what they promised. The shift in power was happening naturally. Inevitably. like gravity pulling everything toward truth. I started feeling something I hadn't experienced in years. Real, genuine peace. For so long, I thought revenge had to be loud, dramatic, explosive, confrontational. I'd imagined scenarios where I'd face Vanessa publicly, where I'd expose her lies in front of everyone, where I'd make her admit what she'd done. But now I understood something better. Sometimes justice sounds like the quiet clicking of your own keyboard, the steady rhythm of a career rebuilt on truth, the soft ping of another satisfied client, the gentle accumulation of proof that you were right all along. I didn't have to destroy Vanessa. I just had to let her keep pretending. And sooner or later, pretending always cracks. The mask always slips. The lies always surface. Because you can't fake competence forever. You can't charm your way through actual work. Eventually, results matter. And Vanessa's results were terrible. 9 months into my consulting work, I received an unexpected email from Thomson Industries Board of Directors. They wanted to schedule a meeting, an official consultation about organizational restructuring and operational efficiency. I read the email 3 times. My hands were shaking slightly. This was it. They were officially acknowledging the problems, officially seeking help, and they were coming to me. I accepted the meeting, scheduled it for 3 weeks out, gave myself time to prepare, to build a comprehensive analysis, to document everything I'd observed and learned over the past months. I worked harder on this project than anything I'd ever done, not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because I wanted it to be perfect, undeniable, so thorough that nobody could question my findings, so professional that nobody could claim personal bias. The night before the meeting, Kelly called. She kept in touch throughout everything, had been my sounding board, my reality check, my reminder that I wasn't crazy, that I hadn't deserved what happened. "Are you ready?" she asked. I looked around my apartment, at the life I'd built, the career I'd earned, the person I'd become. "Yes," I said. "I'm ready." I arrived at Thomson Industries 30 minutes early, parked in the visitor lot, same spot I'd parked 2 years ago for that first presentation. But everything felt different now. I wasn't nervous, wasn't angry. I was calm, prepared, ready. The receptionist recognized me this time. Her eyes widened slightly when I walked in. "Welcome back," she said carefully. Professional but curious. Smiled. "Thank you. I'm here for the 10 o'clock meeting." She nodded, made a call. Within minutes, someone came to escort me upstairs. We rode the elevator in silence. I watched the floor numbers climb. Remembered the last time I'd made this journey. How my heart had pounded. How my hands had shaken. Now I felt steady, solid, sure of myself. The conference room was fuller this time. Not just my parents and Vanessa, but the entire board of directors. People total. All the decision makers. All the people with power. My father sat at the head of the table, looking older, more tired. Vanessa sat to his right, her face carefully blank. But I could see tension in her shoulders, in the way her hands gripped her pen. My mother wasn't present this time. This was pure business. I set up my presentation, connected my laptop, pulled out my materials. Everything organized, professional, thorough. "Thank you for meeting with me today," I began. My voice filled the room. Strong, confident. "I've prepared a comprehensive analysis of your operational challenges, along with specific recommendations for improvement." I launched into the presentation, showed them everything. The declining revenue, the lost clients, the employee turnover, the broken processes, the missed opportunities, every slide backed by data, by evidence, by facts they couldn't dispute. I showed them client feedback, direct quotes from exit interviews, testimonials explaining exactly why they'd terminated their contracts. I showed them employee reviews, anonymous but detailed, painting a clear picture of low morale and poor management. I showed them industry comparisons. How Thompson Industries used to rank. How they rank now. The gap growing wider every quarter. And I showed them the root causes. The patterns. The decisions that had led to these problems. Never once did I mention Vanessa's name. Didn't have to. Every issue traced back to operational management. To the decisions made in her department. To the leadership in her division. The room was silent when I finished. Heavy. Uncomfortable. My father's face had gone from pale to red to pale again. The board members exchanged glances. Uncomfortable. Knowing. Vanessa sat frozen. Her carefully blank expression cracking around the edges. These findings, one board member finally said. They're quite concerning. They are, I agreed. But they're also fixable. With the right strategy and commitment to change. I walked them through my recommendations. Specific, actionable, realistic, ways to rebuild client trust, improve internal processes, retain talent, restore the company's reputation, professional recommendations that any consultant would make. Nothing personal, nothing vindictive, just solutions to real problems. When I finished, my father spoke. His voice was quiet, trained. Thank you for this analysis. We'll need time to review and discuss internally. He nodded. Of course. Hammond and Associates will send you our formal proposal by end of week, including timeline and budget for implementation. Packed up my materials, prepared to leave. But Vanessa stood suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. This is biased, she said. Her voice shook slightly. She has personal reasons to make me look bad. This entire presentation is designed to undermine my position. The room went still. Everyone looked at me, waiting to see how I'd respond. I met Vanessa's eyes, held her gaze. Steady. Every piece of data in that presentation comes from public records, client feedback, and employee surveys, I said quietly. None of it is based on personal opinion. If you believe any of my findings are inaccurate, please point out specifically which data points are wrong. Silence. She couldn't. Because it was all true. All documented. All verifiable. I'm doing a job I was hired to do, I continued. Analyzing your company's challenges and recommending solutions. If those findings make you uncomfortable, perhaps that says more about the actual situation than about my motivations. One of the board members cleared his throat. I think we should discuss this internally. Thank you for your time. He nodded, gathered my things, walked to the door, looked back at Vanessa. For the record, I'm not trying to make you look bad. You've done that yourself. Then I left, the same way I'd left 2 years ago. Head high, back straight. But this time, I wasn't running. I was walking away from a job well done. The response came faster than I expected. 3 days later, an email from Thompson Industries board chairman. They wanted to move forward with Hammond and Associates. They accepted our proposal. Full implementation. 6-month contract with option to extend. And they requested me specifically as lead consultant. I'd be working directly with Thompson Industries. With my father's company. With the organization I'd once thought would be my future. But not as family. As a hired expert. Someone they needed. Someone they couldn't dismiss or ignore. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 years ago, they'd believed Vanessa's lies without question. Had thrown me away without hesitation. Had given her everything that should have been mine. Now they were paying me. Paying my firm. To fix the mess she'd created. To save what her incompetence had broken. I accepted the contract. Started planning the implementation strategy. This was going to be interesting. Working alongside my family. Watching them realize, slowly and completely, exactly what they'd lost when they chose her over me. Word spread quickly through the industry. Hammond and Associates had secured a major contract with Thompson Industries. For operational restructuring. For fixing fundamental problems in their management. People started talking. Making connections. asking questions. Isn't that your family's company? Colleagues would ask. Yes, I'd respond simply. It is. Must be awkward. It's professional, I'd correct. I'm there to do a job. That's all. But everyone understood what was really happening. Everyone could see the shift in power, change in dynamics, the quiet justice unfolding. My phone started buzzing with messages. From old colleagues who'd heard the news. From former classmates. From people I hadn't spoken to in years. Some were supportive, excited for me, proud of how far I'd come. Others were curious, wanting details, wanting gossip, wanting to know what would happen next. I responded to the supportive ones, ignored the rest, because this wasn't about drama, wasn't about revenge, was about doing excellent work, about proving my worth, about showing everyone what truth looked like when you gave it enough time to surface. The night before I was scheduled to start the implementation, I sat in my apartment, looking at everything I'd built over 2 years. The career, the reputation, the life I'd reconstructed from nothing. I thought about the girl who'd run from her own wedding, who'd driven away in a torn dress with mascara running down her face, who'd felt completely destroyed and utterly alone. She seemed like a different person now, someone from another lifetime. I'd become someone stronger, someone who didn't need anyone's approval, who didn't wait for permission to succeed, who built her own validation through excellence and truth. Tomorrow, I'd walk back into Thompson Industries, not as the rejected daughter, not as the family disappointment, but as the consultant they desperately needed, the expert who could save what they'd broken. And Vanessa would have to watch, would have to sit in meetings while I fixed her mistakes, would have to smile and nod while I proved everything she'd said about me was a lie. This was just the beginning. The real work was about to start, and I was ready, more than ready. I was exactly where I needed to be, doing exactly what I was meant to do. The battle lines were drawn. History was being rewritten. And this time, I was the one holding the pen. Have you ever had to prove yourself to people who doubted you? Sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation. It's competence. It's succeeding so completely that the truth becomes impossible to ignore. What would you do in my position? Would you take satisfaction in fixing your sister's mistakes? Or would it feel too painful? Share your thoughts below.